We are back and getting ready to go into the next match of the day, and it is going to be the upper bracket side of Group A that we're going to be casting through completion today as BoarControl takes on Thijs. Thijs just took a win over Hunter Race as in the previous match, and BoarControl taking down Zim in the first match of the day. So what do you make of this one, Sol? Anything spicy standing out here? Do you think anyone's got a real edge going on?
Well, no rest for the wicked for Thijs, first and foremost, because he has to come right off the back of that last series and then go straight into BoarControl. He's, of course, another incredibly strong competitor. You can see the way the bracket breaks down right now. Of course, those crowns means that you're going to progress through to Sunday to play out the top four. And again, as Raven mentioned just before the break, each of these first 3 weeks, the players are playing for seeding points, which basically decides which of the 2 groups you are going to go into for the majority of the season. But it's a matchup, as you were asking, that I'm very, very excited to see, because it's kind of another old blood versus new blood kind of matchup. I guess that's kind of a cop-out to use as a setup for a Thijs series, and I'll probably just stop doing it, because you can basically say that about anyone when it comes against Thijs, right? Like, Thijs is kind of the old school god that we still have hanging around in Hearthstone. Right. So he's kind of on that pedestal when it comes to kind of the early days of competitive Hearthstone and in multiple European championships, etc., that he has to his name. But BoarControl, I genuinely do believe, is one of the strongest players in the world currently. I think he has an incredibly strong thought process about the game, a very consistent thought process about the game, and I'm very happy to see him leading the Swiss in this week 1, because I don't quite think his I don't want to say performance, I don't think his results have lived up to expectations in Grandmasters so far. Whether that is because of his own performance or because of just, bad rolls and unlucky outcomes in various positions.
Yeah, and I think for me, let's not joke around too much either, that like BoarControl, when we say new blood, he is new blood. He is not new to the game or to competing. No. We especially have known BoarControl for a long time now, and I think honestly, the scary thing about BoarControl is he does just keep getting better, which should put some fear into some of the other players, as it's you might be new or newer to the spotlight and being involved in the high end of big majors, whereas Thijs is more just a consistent presence at this point. But BoarControl is not messing around, as proven, as you mentioned, by not only winning the Swiss but also winning his first match here. And if he takes down Thijs, that is an impressive run in itself just for this 1 week, never mind the rest.
Yeah, I think it's kind of staggering to me that like BoarControl, who I first knew as like the random kid that sat across from me at random Insomnia tournaments and like laughed at me getting salty about Secret Paladins drawing the perfect curve every game. That kid is now like on T1 and one of the biggest Hearthstone players in the world, Like, it's a real like coming of age thing for me. Of course, we've known him for a very long time in the UK scene, and he is now very much on a par with Thijs in terms of standings in competitive Hearthstone, at least. Maybe his stream numbers aren't quite there yet, but
they're getting there. They're going in the right direction.
They are going in the right direction. Stonk's definitely going up as far as BoarControl is concerned.
On the other side there, Thijs again just showing with his decision making in the previous series. He had a couple of rough spots against Hunter Race, but got the job done. And honestly, if I'd say something about Thijs, is he definitely isn't one of those players that gets too flustered. And like, honestly, last year in Asia Pacific, the region I was casting, there were multiple players and multiple moments where they were getting flustered and they either weren't finishing their turn, missing attacks, the usual, right? Whereas Thijs honestly is a fairly consistent, just he might have hard turns, he might not make the best play every single time, but he makes a play that's good, and he will get it done, as opposed to really sort of get shaken or anything in any particular series.
Yeah, I think I can remember exactly one occasion where he did something, in my opinion, that I would describe as like egregiously bad, and not just a matter of opinion. We can debate about it. Maybe you're right, maybe I'm right, kind of thing. And even in that case, like, he actually clearly watched the cast and then DM'd me and said, "Well, actually, I think what I did was right, and here's why." I still disagree with him, but I think he at least had like a logical thought process behind what he was doing, which kind of backs up what you said. He is a focused, mechanical, consistent Hearthstone player. You really don't see him making too many catastrophic mistakes.
Yeah, well, let's get into it without any more further ado. BoarControl on the top there, bringing this Highlander Rogue, which is the big question point I have of his lineup. Going up against Thijs on this token Druid once again. And this is, just a reminder, an upper bracket match of the group. And if whoever wins this is going to put himself in a fantastic position going forward and for the rest of the week. So I'm getting basically maximum points to lead into that division placement later in the season.
What's Thijs snacking on?
I don't know, but I'm a little bit hungry and I'm annoyed. He can eat and play.
Same.
Unfortunately, I cannot eat and cast. Well, I could, it's just no one would enjoy it and I'd get shouted at very quickly.
Either that or you just have incredible manipulation of the mute button at all the right times for each bite.
Now, that is one day a skill I hope to master. But in the meantime, these secrets are coming out from BoarControl. Dirty Tricks is going to basically draw BoarControl 3 cards on Thijs' next turn. Because it is not uncommon that a druid that mostly plays spells will play a spell in the in almost every turn of the game.
So, apart from the fact that it's 2 cards, everything you said was correct. Sorry. It is, yeah.
Right,
it's essentially just two.
A rogue player.
It's just 2-mana AI, essentially. Like, against this deck, right? Like, it's just going to happen. You're going to basically get the cards immediately when you play it on the following turn anyway.
Yeah, and you know what, Saul? There might be some fancy new cards out. There might be a fancy new class, but they're still just the good old Edwin terms.
Yeah.
It wouldn't
honestly,
be Hearthstone without a big Edwin.
Even though Spy Mistress wasn't like a value card to do this alongside, it's still a pretty good companion for the Edwin turn, just because it's more unanswerable damage that's just going to get forced through on the same turn.
Yeah, I mean, edges you closer to actually 2-turning someone, right? As opposed to 2.5 to 3. BoarControl doesn't need much more damage to end this game in 2 turns. And maybe, what do you think about him actually keeping the minion stealth to dodge the many direct removal tools that Thijs will run? Because why not just hold it?
Well, I guess why not hold it? Because it's going to deal 3 damage regardless, whether it's now... Like, it's essentially, it's going to hit once and then it's going to get removed, right? That's basically what's going to happen. So I don't think it really matters when that happens, potentially.
I'm just thinking, like, you give your opponent more stuff to do on turns where they're probably fairly stuck, was my thought. I know the damage total is the same, but now I'll go full caster mode here. But like, what if Thijs now gets a good Wrath into something, right? That wasn't, which is doable on the Van Cleef anyway, but BoarControl would still have an extra minion on board, and the Druid deck doesn't run swipe or any AoE removal.
Sure.
So it's only a small thing, don't get me wrong. I'm not like, BoarControl messed up, like, at all. But it's just a point where I think the attack wasn't 100% always needed there. But now there is the Wrath, there is the draw, and not much else. He does have the Crystal Power ×2 that can heal him for 10, which basically negates the Van Cleef swing. But still, Thijs needs to look for something pretty fantastic pretty soon.
Yeah. It's going to take just about every Wrath and Bogbeam in Thijs' deck in one go to be able to fight through this Edwin the hard way. So it's likely to just be sticking around for some time. And now with the extra ramp coming through from Boar with the Mana Saber, oof, this game is going to be accelerating quickly. Boar deciding whether he wants to invoke this turn. Which I guess he was always going to, because his Warden is way too valuable to him as a board clear, I imagine, just because of the way it works. So.
On the wings of evil.
Mm-hmm.
On the wings of evil.
Choose soon.
Job's done. Okay, so Thijs has managed to put up some kind of wall here. But is it going to be enough against the Van Cleef? What has he actually got here? There's 2 damage from the Kobold. That can push through 1, but he can't quite get through anything else because everything's just a little bit too slow. The Warden plus Kobold.
This is where you start cursing the fact that Treant isn't currently a minion.
Yeah, for a second I was like, wait a minute, that's lethal. And I'm like, wait, it's not, because it's not a type, is it? Even though it is. It's not written on the card.
Well put as always, Raven.
No, well, for example, the Druid Legendary, right? Buff all Treants all the time. Well,
yes.
It's almost there.
Yeah. It's debatable, right?
Choose soon.
Well, Control, just going to go for the CMAT. Can't quite get through regardless. So this is just the strongest, just straight up play. It's now at 6-6 on the board, as well as them giant Van Cleef for Thijs to deal with. And honestly, I do not think it is there. I don't even think there's anything that you can even draw into with the Wrath that gets him there. Or, well, I'll say gets him there, stops him dying. He's going to go for it, though. It's better than nothing. Power of the Wild, not going to be the case. And it looks like that is going to be conceded. BoarControl taking a, quite frankly, pretty straightforward game number 1. They're off the back of a huge Van Cleef, and you know what? As long as there'll be Rogue, as long as there'll be Van Cleef, we will have these games of Hearthstone with him just basically taking over. If it goes to especially the 10-10 level, it's not like it was just a 6-6 or anything. Like, that is a game ender Van Cleef right there.
Sorry, I was so surprised they came to camera then.
You're like, oh yeah, I'm on camera.
Actually was not. Sorry, I've been dealing with technical difficulties that entire game, which is why I was very surprised when I suddenly appeared on screen. Sorry, Raven, I wasn't listening to you. What did you say?
Big Van Cleefs are pretty good.
They are. That is 10 out of 10 analysis, just like that Big Van Cleef was a 10 out of 10. 10-10 and ended up winning the game quite easily for BoarControl.
Yeah, so it's a pretty good win, and honestly, games like that, although look a little bit, derpy now and again because it was pretty much just the Van Cleef carrying, it must feel great for BoarControl, right? Boom, 1-0, fairly straightforward game. Thijs didn't have much to say in the matter. He is one step closer to just demolishing his group and edging even more towards just that extra points earning, because honestly, not that I've sat and done a million intricacies of math on this, but whoever wins their week, say week 1, some things must have to go terribly wrong for you not to make like the top half of the Division A cut once we get into week 4.
Yeah, for sure. I am still curious. Like both of these Highlander Rogue games that we've seen, there was kind of the Zephyrus off the top for the fireball, like right when he needed it on the last possible turn, and now we just had like carry essentially. So I still don't really know. Don't really know what that deck looks like on average, and whether it's like a good bring overall. So I'm looking forward to seeing some more of it potentially over time and seeing how it pans out in the long run. Yeah, and
how I sort of check mark how good the deck is doing, that deck specifically, is how often Galakron actually gets played. And I think, what was that, 0 for 2 so far? We've not seen Galakron come down. And like Galakron, although he's a Highlander list, there's Zephyrus, there's Alexstrasza and all the other fun tools in there. But for me, if you're not consistently getting Galakron down, then, maybe the other versions of Rogue are better, like the pure Galakron Rogue. Because I feel like that's really the card that wins you the games the most consistently overall. Going into game number 2 now, though. Thijs on this No Hands Warrior and BoarControl on the Warlock. And now this matchup, I have to believe, must be tough for Warrior.
It's one of the more... I mean, it's one of the decks that does have some answers to some of the things it's trying to do, right? Because no matter how big a board that you make, you can still just get blown out by Plague of Flames, by Dark Skies, etc. most of the time. It's very hard to overwhelm the number of minions or amount of health required to stop that from happening.
Yeah.
But you do have very crucial cards in the matchup, which are these Death Rattle minions, the Terran and the Eggs, which can really allow you to just create really annoying board states that Warlock can't deal with. So the fact that Thijs has an Egg start here, I think is potentially huge for him in the matchup.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it can definitely be done. I just feel like, for example, the removing stuff and just gaining tons of armor for the warrior, well, Warlock doesn't care. Like, gain 100 armor, Warlock's not really too fussed. So you lose like half of the strength or at least options that your deck has.
I actually think, honestly, game plan A for Galakron Warlock is play Galakron. Invoke Galakron, play Galakron, Alexstrasza your opponent and kill them. Like, I genuinely think that's like the base game plan of Galakron Warlock. So the fact that that's removed by the ability to gain armor, I think, is perhaps more relevant than you're giving it credit for.
Okay, I just see the army of imps, and if your opponent actually plays for that as the warrior, I feel like you can just do whatever you want as Galakron, and you do have minions. I mean, even these Veiled Worshippers are 5/4s, right? You know, you do have threats. So it's can the warrior deal with your threats if they're playing slow and gain a ton of armor?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I don't think so. Just a small note as well, and it's a card I think we're going to be discussing a lot for the next 2 years of Hearthstone, honestly, is the Moarg Artificer. Fantastic card, super cool. If you don't know what it is, it's a 2-mana 2/4 demon that doubles the damage that minions take from spells. So that means Nether Breath, as well as the Dark Skies, Rain of Fire you've just seen BoarControl draw. This one card makes AoE and removal tools so much stronger, as well as any cards with Lifesteal. You gain double 2 because it dealt double damage. That plus a Nether Breath is deal 8, heal 8 to a minion. The card's the nuts, is basically what I'm getting at.
Yep.
And it's a good body, right? A 2-mana 2/4? Like,
yep. It was our boy Abar who was one of the first people I heard call this and say, hey, this is a good card.
Why do you have to be mad? I think he said afterwards.
Yes, he did. Yeah, that's exactly how he phrased it. You are correct.
The only drawback that I didn't actually mention is that double damage effect is live for both players, which is why it's a 2-mana 2/4. Otherwise, that might just be broken. But yeah, so it's a double-sided effect, but the decks you play it in, you always end up with the higher gain, I think.
Right.
But so far, let's get back to the actual game before I start just describing every card in expansion. Thijs feels like he's on the back foot, mainly just because of how the board looks right now. But where do you put both players here based on hand and the board states on?
Sorry, I lost you there for a second. I lost like the second half of your question. What was the second half?
What do you think about the game so far? I'll crush it down into a very straightforward sentence.
Wow, I wasn't expecting such an insightful question, Raven. Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much progressed as expected. Thijs had the egg early, which is very difficult for Warlock to deal with, so kind of got a bit of early pressure and early damage through. But this is kind of mid-range proceedings where the Galakron Warlock starts to take over. So Boar can find his Galakron pretty soon, then he's going to be in a relatively comfortable position. But for now, I think Thijs is still relatively in control, just in terms of the amount of aggression he's generating.
It's definitely a deceptive deck, isn't it? Because honestly, you look at like Thijs' hand. He's got a 3/3, an Armor Smith, a 1/3, and a 1/1. You know, that doesn't look like a aggressive tools or powerful hand. But actually, the things this deck can do with it, with cards on lines of Rampage, and also the I forgot the name for it already. The Mogu. That isn't a Mogu. The Brute. Oh, there you go. Perfect. With cards like that, you can really just turn up on the heat very quickly with this No Hands Warrior.
And the Brute is looking pretty spicy here sometime soon. Thijs is just starting to run out of notable pressure, I would say. So just having drawn like the big minion here, I think is pretty crucial. Either a Brute or a Battle Rage was really what Thijs was going to need here to keep going. I think Battle Rage is higher priority, because it really doesn't matter how big a minion it is that you draw and play. Like, Plague of Flames is going to blow it up just the same. So having that ability to just consistently refill by getting off big Battle Rages is probably the most important thing that Thijs needs right now.
Yeah, and especially one leads to the other, and not necessarily the other way around, right? So you'd always generally prefer the drill. But BoarControl does have a ton of options now. He's got a lot of removal. He's got the Nether Wing, but what he hasn't got is tons of health. Also, one of the rare moments that he can't invoke. I feel like Warlocks can invoke every single turn, except this one for BoarControl, which means he cannot generate imps to heal from.
Yes, I will destroy them.
Oof.
Got to rip the plague, right?
He has to. He
Stop
has
doing
to.
it.
Yeah.
Can't take the 6 here.
He is so often dead if he just goes, meh, it'll be fine.
Yep.
He's also
There is some risky skipper bomb fun that can be had here for Thijs if he wants to go for it, and he certainly does. With this Kobold Lackey going face for 2, he needs very minimal damage from these bomb outcomes.
Look at BoarControl.
Wait, is this more?
Your flaws are
Really? He doesn't just want to go for immediate lethal this turn. It's interesting. Okay.
I don't mind this because the important part here is BoarControl is a turn away from Alex, and any other heals is less likely because he would have already done it, and also any AoE removal is also a nightmare. So I think the thing here is this makes the most awkward turn for BoarControl as opposed to giving Thijs the biggest damage turn now. I think is the mindset here, and I think I'm more than okay with this.
Yep.
So I'm not actually sure what BoarControl could even do if he could choose his cards this turn.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many Nether Breaths he has left, whether it's 1 or 0. But of course, Moarg and Nether Breath is kind of the big scary thing here in terms of just getting him out of range. Aside from that, it's a pretty unanswerable board, I will give you that.
Almost out of time. Fire everything and everyone.
Oof, he's just putting down what he can.
Yeah, he's just going to AoE and just try and soak it as much as he possibly can.
If the Moarg lives, he can sack pack. Oh, it lived!
It lived and he lived, huh?
What?
Alright. Sure.
Okay. There is still a bomb, and there is still the Kobold Lackey as well. Not. Oh.
Oh!
There we go!
Snap Corcoran off the top. Thijs, I believe, is playing 2 of those in his list when multiple people I've seen are going down to just 1. You can see the payoff for that is that when you do get those aggressive openers like Thijs had that game, Corcoran is the ultimate payoff card to shut your opponent out in that position.
100%. And I think that the Brute was really the big one. BoarControl having to Plague of Flames, his 5/4 just into the Brute, which is a very dull turn because often the Warrior has a wide board. So Plague of Flames is sick because you make a ton of imps, Plague, they're all gone. It doesn't proc Armor Smith. You're fantastic. But having to just commit to the Plague 1-for-1 and then knowing that Thijs still had a hand to start, piling on the pressure again means that BoarControl just never really got hold of that game. And it was impressive, actually. It's one of the more impressive versions of that matchup I've seen, at least. And it looked like the pressure was just never let go of from Thijs.
Yeah. And like I say, it really does come down to those Death Rattle minions. I think they're very, very crucial in the matchup because everything else, like you said, doesn't matter. Plague of Flames is just going to blow it up. So having that start with the egg into Rampage, that's pretty much the dream in the matchup, I would say, unless you can then follow that up with Terran straight afterwards. So I think it's a pretty solid opener there from Tyson, squaring that series up now, one game to 1.
Yeah, so now there's going to be still the Warlock for BoarControl and the Demon Hunter, and then Demon Hunter and Druid for Thijs. Interestingly enough, what do you think about this divergent path of bans that Thijs has chosen to go on with? The Warlock wasn't banned, and the Warrior was banned instead. Otherwise, we would see the kind of same theme we've been seeing anyway of Warlocks gone, and then it's the next, Druid, Demon Hunter, Warrior, or, X that's left.
So the difference is what the rogue. Boar has a rogue and Thijs has the druid. Is that the difference between the two of them? Yeah. And that's led Thijs to ban out the warrior and leave up the warlock. Interesting. I mean, I don't necessarily know enough about the Highlander rogue matchups to really break that one down in full. But I am surprised to see so much respect just in a vacuum, being given over to the no hands warrior with how new and essentially untested a deck it is at kind of competitive level. But I guess you can say that about every deck in the game right now, that they're all pretty much untested at this kind of level, because this is the level and this is where it's just started. So the proving grounds begins now. But I am a little bit surprised to see no hands warrior getting enough respect to take down a ban.
Yeah, and I'm just staring at these classes, which is why my eye line's gone a little bit down. But for me, I'm just looking at Thijs, Druid, Demon Hunter, and I'm just terrified of the Warlock, because I think Warlock has good game versus both of those things. So I don't know. I just wouldn't feel comfortable in that position. Maybe I'm not giving enough credit to the Warrior, and maybe I'm wrong. But for me, with Druid and Demon Hunter specifically for Thijs, I think that Warlock's just bound to get a win at some point. So, and then Demon Hunter, it's the current wild card, isn't it? If Demon Hunter feels like it can get a win no matter what the game's going like. So we'll see how it pans out, as it sounds like the players are getting into the next game. Find out what they've queued up. Let's kick it off with game number 3 between BoarControl and Thijs. It's going to be Demon Hunter versus the Warlock. So we'll see how it pans out. And for anyone who doesn't know, this Warlock is mainly as popular as it is because it should beat up Demon Hunter.
Don't know if I'd go as far as beat up, but yeah,
survive.
Remain very competitive against. In no small part to that card you see in the opening hand there, Sacrificial Pact. That is the ultimate kicker in the Demon Hunter matchup, because lo and behold, they rely very heavily on demons, which BoarControl can just kill for 0 mana while gaining 5 health.
It's going to be interesting to see how the game plan develops going forward, because soon I believe we're getting some kind of Sacrificial Pact change, which, although Demon Hunter is going to receive some nerfs, if Sacrificial Pact's gone, it's going to potentially improve the matchup against this Warlock anyway. So it's going to be a fun kind of you go I go kind of game in terms of these nerfs and buffs for the classes.
Right.
So now, Saul, here's the question. Is this Moag Artificer good enough to just play?
Just as a 2/4, plop it down now?
Or
it's certainly a play that I've made, and I haven't really regretted it too often against early game decks.
How are you feeling about some coin usage instead?
Do you want to coin out Albatross or
anything? No, whatever, take your pick. I'm just thinking there's a lot of reasonably costed cards in BoarControl's hand. Does he need the coin right now?
Sure.
It saves the Mogu, and and for maybe another breath, maybe for an AoE later. I think it was
important to play a minion here. I just don't necessarily think it was massively important which one. You're expecting Imprisoned Satyr to come down, so that could potentially be your sack pack target, and then you just need a minion to trade over the remaining 2/2 if they have Twin Slice to go along with it.
Yeah, I think looking back on it, for me, as long as the Moag Artificer wasn't played, I like it, because I feel like the power it has versus Demon Hunter is huge late game.
Sure.
So even if you'd done these 2/3 drops the other way around, it wouldn't have overly bothered me. My only point there is it's likely he takes damage, so then he can do this to a guaranteed Sacrificial Pact if he really felt like he needed it.
Fair.
But as you mentioned earlier, there is an abundance of targets to aim at your enemy for Sacrificial Pact in this matchup, so not vital. Bit of an awkward hand for Thijs, honestly.
Yeah, really awkward. Just hasn't had the start he needed, and even honestly, if he'd have just had 1 or 2 of these minions earlier, like if he had this Battle Fiend on turn 1, it really wouldn't have changed a great deal, because BoarControl is just sitting on the answer the whole time anyway.
Yep. So now at this point for Thijs, does he have to try and work in some kind of save up and try and go for a combo style plan? Because he seems so far behind, so is he going to be very reliant on trying to maybe metamorphs his next turn and aim towards getting this skull as quickly as possible as Outcast, and then see what happens after that?
I would expect that he's gonna play Skull from the left of his hand this game, not the right. If that was if I had to guess, so I think he might just curve out from the left-hand side of his hand instead. using like Warglaves this turn, for example, and then using that to activate the Gladebound and the Frenzied Fellwing on the following turn.
Makes sense to me. And here's something I struggle with Warglaves of Azeroth, right? Where do you draw the line on you killing minions? I struggle with it so much.
I'm not killing a 1/1 with it ever.
Oh,
Never in my life will I kill a 1/1 with it.
It's like, for me, for example,
Yes, I will destroy
if there was a 2-3 on the board, right? And this is very hypothetical and obviously hard to describe, but part of me's like, I could kill this minion, or it could deal 3 more to face. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's such a... Because the effect is very powerful, but I feel like it's so hard to make the right call on when and when not to.
Right.
He could actually get away with a hero power trade off the big one. Or is he just going to go face? Is he just committed?
Well, I mean, there's 4 damage going to 2 different places this turn. You would never send your face into the minion. If you were going to clear it, you do it with the Gladebound at it.
Oh, sure, yeah. Or even better, all face.
I mean, that was a valid option. I'm saying that's why if you're going to kill the 5/4, you do it with the Gladebound Adepts.
And now, though, you just already look, and it's 2 sacrificial pacts, all the removal you could ever want. There's Alexstrasza there. The Morag Artifice is still in hand, so the second Another Breath is drawn, which is very likely now, especially with the Worshipper played, getting deeper and deeper into the deck. You can see why people flock to Warlock if they're having a tough time against Demon Hunter on ladder, at least.
Yep. I mean, I still think it's a very winnable matchup for Demon Hunter. I think, some of the, top legend players with the tempo version of the deck still claim that it's potentially slightly favored from the Demon Hunter side as well. And I'm, not far off that opinion myself. It seems like a fairly even matchup from where I stand.
From where I stand, Saul, a fairly even matchup is a fantastic matchup if you're against Demon Hunter.
Yeah, exactly. That's why... Well, I was kind of quibbling over the start when you said that this beats up Demon Hunter or whatever, and I was like, well, I don't know if I'll go that far, but it's at least one of the most competitive options that we have in the game right now.
It's in the same weight class. There we go. How about that?
Sure, yeah.
It's in the same. It's a fair fight. It's
yeah.
Okay, so the pressure is on. Thijs is being able to push a lot of damage, and we can see a lot more damage in hand. The Metamorphosis all over, a huge damage output. That 5 mana to spend to get it cooking is quite the investment. Whereas BoarControl has almost every option under the sun available to him to how he wants to deal with the board, but he does have to just make sure that these sacrificial pacts, if he doesn't use them now, he needs to make sure he can use them when he needs them, because there's an odd chance that Thijs just doesn't play any demons to sack pack, and then BoarControl doesn't have any demons to sack pack, and then they're just 0 mana in his hand doing nothing.
Yeah, that's certainly a play that you have to make sometimes as the Demon Hunter, especially with this kind of hand that's just damage. He had Warglaves, Metamorphosis, and he's got Twin Slices and so on. Is when you're just straight up setting up a race, like maybe Thijs draws Kane, for example, over the next couple of turns, and then just starts, counting to this 21 total that Boar has, is that you just literally don't play minions. You don't play demons. And then if they want to sack pack one of their own guys, great. They're sack packing one of their own guys,
Yeah, they have to generate it first. So then you make them check 2 boxes instead of 1, which is obviously what you want to do to stop your opponent, or at least lessen the chances. But double? Oh no, sorry. I thought that was double Twin Slice there, but I can't read. But still, just the Twin Slice along with the extra weapons, looking like there is a lot of damage stacked up.
There is, but there is not enough. That's the problem. Thijs does, I think, still need to generate some kind of minion presence.
I like this, though.
He's going to open himself up to that sack pack still from BoarControl's hand.
I think this is okay, because this gets him towards Skull on the Outcast slot, which is worth a lot. Especially considering the Skull itself is only 3 mana, which really opens up your options in the following turn. That is Another Breath as well, and suddenly the infinite healing it feels like from Warlock can begin.
For sure, yeah.
So one of the things that frankly ruined my day 1 expansion experience playing Hunter was not necessarily Warlock, but when I was doing, the Hunter chip damage, get as much damage in over multiple turns, go for lethal, and then the Eldrazi Warblades came down for Demon Hunter and just healed them back up to nearly full. I was like, ooh. And it's very similar to Warlock, right? You can do a lot of chip damage, and okay, I've got them to 10, 12, 13, whatever. And then one turn later, they're on 27. And you're like, oh, my whole game plan.
Or just maxing out on the heals this turn.
I don't blame him.
Just
he has.
sure.
It's a setup for potentially Alex Strauss. I'm not sure what his actual unique count is yet, but either or, he can play one of the Alex Strausses next turn if he so desires, and it's a very strong setup because outside of Altruist, there's not much Thijs can do about this board.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's just about getting the mana spent so that
Yep.
potentially he can just spend mana on a big 9-drop power play next turn if it comes down to it.
Yep. When you can make some wiggle room against Demon Hunter, you make it. Oh, he really wanted to see Altruist, didn't he? Look at the setup if he has Altruist. The game just ends. His whole hand of what's that? 6 cards costs 2 mana.
Yeah.
It's technically 7, I guess, for the twin slice.
He would have had to have, he would have still been doing this turn, I imagine, so he would have been playing some of it to then immediately draw the Altruist.
Right.
But still, he would have had an enormous amount of clearing power and some good face damage to come from it. But nope, no such luck. Altruist is very deep in the remainder of that deck.
Yeah, something that threw me off as well. Do you know with Watcher, if you play Watcher into Watcher, the card you chose from the first one is not necessarily shown in the second one. Really blew my mind.
But it is still second top of your deck, right?
That's a good question.
I'm pretty sure that is.
Does the
how it
deck not
works.
shuffle?
No.
Oh, then that's blown my mind even more. Then I did not know that bit.
The effect from shuffling a bomb, for example, and that card just putting a card on the top of your deck are different effects, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. So it like hovers the card at the top, I guess. Then, so that's why you don't select it because it's like
pulls one card out and puts it on top.
Sure. It's just weird that if you play a second one before drawing, it doesn't pull the one you just put on top.
Yeah, it just shows you 3 cards from your deck. It's not the next 3 cards. Nowhere does it say it's the next 3 cards. It's just 3 cards
True.
from your deck.
There we go. That is going to be the game. BoarControl taking it 2-1 now over Thijs, looking pretty good and getting a win with that Warlock, which, like I said, it's easy to say now, but I would have been very surprised. Say BoarControl queues the Warlock every single game until he wins. I would have been very surprised if that Warlock went 0-3 or whatever in these matchups, because it's kind of built to survive Demon Hunter or take on, and I think it's absolutely fine versus Druid as well, outside of course the big burst, just because of the amount of AoE it has available to it as well. So just going to be Demon Hunter left for BoarControl to take the series. Not the worst spot to be in, Sol.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I just looked up legend data for Tempo. What they have as Tempo Demon Hunter versus Galakron Warlock. 56% to the Demon Hunter.
Oh,
so it does kind of back up what we're talking about. It says that it's still potentially a winning matchup for the Demon Hunter. But it's certainly been my experience where it hasn't felt like the big counter that people claim Sacrificial Pact ends up being, because you can still just push past that a lot of the time. But that certainly was not the case in that matchup. But I think that was largely because of just how slow Thijs' start was in the early game.
Yeah, and there are definitely a few things that change it, because a lot of the Warlock lists aren't, for example, running like Rain of Fires, or maybe some aren't running, the Morag Artificers as well, which is huge, of course. Yep. But yeah, I have no doubts that it's still solid. It's like we mentioned a few times. It's just what has a okay chance versus a Demon Hunter. Well, that's a good matchup then, because it's got a chance. It doesn't just stomp anyway. But it sounds like we're getting ready to go into the next game and potentially the final game of this series. It does take the win, but Thijs has got plenty of fight left in him now, and it is going to be a good old-fashioned Illidan mirror. And I say old-fashioned, and I'm going to say it because the amount of Illidan mirrors that have been played so far in life is quite a lot. So I'm deciding it's old-fashioned.
Yeah, so literally every game that was played on day one, That's first off. They were all Illidan mirrors.
Which was a lot of games, by the way.
It was, yeah.
But here we go. Good opening, I would say, for Thijs here. We will fix the Glaive-bound Adept hover in a second, because I believe that is. There we go. But the Blazing Battle Mage is very, very nice. And do you like or feel the usage of coin here is required to just try and beat down this Battle Fiend?
I was initially going to say no, and then curious that Thijs kind of agrees. I guess so. Okay, sure. He's scared of, Twin Slice or whatever else coming back the other way, or like Umber Wing Twin Slice would be a complete blowout. Yeah, I guess this makes sense.
I think you just want to make sure this thing goes down. Like, it needs to die. It's actually really just the snowball card. Demon Hunter having 1-drops and playing them is very strong on turn 1, obviously. But if it's that exact 1-drop, you are terrified if it lives.
Time grows short.
Entirely distracted by the cat on board stream.
Thought you
Not
would
sure
be.
which one that was at a glance.
Tough options there, honestly. I didn't think that was a clear choice.
No, I agree.
And I think, like, whichever one BoarControl picked, I would have been like, no, okay. I see it.
Oh, I will say, I guess very relevant while we have this Demon Hunter mirror going on, that the actual exact content of the nerfs has just been announced. I'm breaking news now, Raven. This is what we've reached in our career. Relevant ones for Demon Hunter. Frenzied Fellwing, exactly what I said. 3 attack, 2 health is going to be the new. Altruist is going up
Sol
to 4.
leaked the nerfs, just to put it.
But it's gaining an attack. But yeah, if you want to check out the full list of those, you can find it on news, etc. Go check it out. I'm sure they've tweeted about it as well, if that's where you get your news from.
Yes, they have indeed. Yeah, some crazy nerfs, but we can discuss those later on, as right now. These players do not care about the nerfs.
Sorry, I've just been made aware by a producer that we're on a delay as well, so that's going to sound really stupid half an hour from now.
Breaking news! 15 minutes or whatever it is late. Enjoy. Well, won't you sound like a silly sottle?
Oh, what an idiotic boob I was 10 seconds ago.
I'm okay with it. Most importantly, though, I feel like BoarControl has a very solid grip on this, mainly because of that Spectral Sight, and even the Warglaives of Azimuth are going to be nice in the mirror, the tempo mirror specifically, because if you have them and your opponent does not, it means you basically can assert board dominance at any given point, because that basically clears a Demon Hunter board 9 times out of 10 on its own.
Yes. Yeah, you essentially just get control of the matchup. If you want to be straight up aggressive, then be straight up aggressive. If you want to use it for board control, then you use it for board control. But it's a 1-card solution that gives you control of the way the matchup is going to flow, essentially.
No, doesn't look like the craziest of turns in the world from Thijs. I don't see much reason to not just slam Kane and let BoarControl deal with it, as 5 is quite a large number for Demon Hunter to deal.
Yeah.
It's not dodging any taunts, but guess what? Demon Hunter at the moment, or at least in these forms, doesn't play any. So just chuck it down and push some damage.
To still kill the 2/2, because that way you're playing around I-Beam as a counterattack, like I-Beam plus the 2/2, taking care of the Kane.
Yeah, I kind of presumed Weapon and 1 Demon would go in for the 2/2 and make sure Kane's on 5.
Hide behind your servants. I will still find you.
Or is Thijs going to fully protect his health and not take the 2?
I have done this multiple times.
Okay.
I'm never quite sure whether it's right or not, but my instincts have led me to say I value 2 of my own health over a 1/1 on the board a lot.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't hate it by any means. I think as long as he didn't trade the Kane in, then then I'm okay with any outcome here. But yeah, I
that
like
was
this.
the bad one.
Yeah, that was the ooh.
Demons.
Boar can clear this Kane with the Warblades if he wants, but it would cost him. If Thijs is bothered about 2 health, Boar might be bothered about 6. He could do it in 1 swing if he wants to use Twin Slice as well, but maybe that's just okay, and then he plays the Frenzied Fellwing as well.
No, he only has second slice though.
Oh, it's second.
not
Sorry,
slice,
it's me.
Yeah.
Me yet again not being able to read. Apologies. So yeah, take it back. He cannot do that.
So he only has 1 4-attack swing this turn, even if he did that, which would end up being kind of pointless. So he'd have to swing twice anyway. I guess he could swing
No,
twice.
he could still
play the fell
Fell
wing
Wing,
still,
yeah.
as you say. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it does do something. I'm not sure that something is quite enough though. Yeah, I'm kind of on board for this plan, to be perfectly honest.
Well, as well, he has Eye Beam. He just doesn't have Eye Beam that turn, right? So he
Yes,
can do
correct.
things. It's just he's decided to not be too awkward that turn and maybe have a little bit easier go of it going forward. But Thijs does not want to give him the time. This is one of my favorite Demon Hunter cards, actually, the Gladebound Adept. I think it's so sick and very strong. But that now is just an even bigger problem. I said Kane was tough to deal with 5 health. Well, Gladebound Adept only has 4, but it's also got 7 attack, so tanking it with your face is very unfun.
Yeah. Not for long though. I'm going to stop breaking news.
Because
all know
you're not
I'm
breaking
talking about
news.
this, though. No, I know. Exactly,
You
that's what
never
I'm saying.
started breaking news, Sol, so you cannot stop.
Just let me have my fun, Raven. Come on.
You don't let me have mine often enough. So
That's a great point. Honestly, I'm not sure what I was expecting quarter from you.
I grow impatient.
Boar only has 3 Altries Outcast procs this turn, which is not enough. Doesn't really have a good way to manipulate the Eye Beam to the extremes of his hand. Everything is just slightly ugly this turn.
does he ever metamorphosis and just take it
That's
out?
all he's got.
Yeah,
That's
I
all
think
he's
he
got.
has to.
All he's got. It's
And
the
he-
only play.
And he just has to believe that it's just going to be good enough, right? Because otherwise, everything else just gets him dead quick. For to make it simple. I think Thijs should definitely threaten the glaives this turn. He has Chaos Strike next turn. He doesn't. He has a ton of card draw, but if he just draws cards, I feel like he gives BoarControl the time to do something. Whereas I think Warglaves here, and even just push him for 4, push him for 7 total, of course, with the Cane attack, means he can push him for even more next turn. And maybe BoarControl thinks, oh, actually, I'm just going to die if I don't do anything super defensive. And I feel like the more defensive BoarControl gets, the more pressure Thijs can actually put on.
Demons.
Yeah, I wonder if Thijs is just kind of scared a little bit, I guess, of just completely giving up the board, because at a bare minimum, that is what he does this turn, right? He doesn't necessarily have all the damage he needs to push through. He does have that skull on the far left, which I guess you just have to bank on finding you the solution.
What must be done?
Yep, he's going to go for it now. Second Slice going to come out with the Altruis and try and do what he can. Not a bad pickup with the card on the far right there for BoarControl, the Chaos Strike. But he isn't going to need it quite yet, because that Eye Beam is going to get the job done and heal. So nice aggressive push from BoarControl. What does Thijs have now? This matchup is so swingy. It's crazy, isn't it? Like it's not who defends, it's who can be more aggressive every time. It's never like, I'm going to play it safe.
Poor warlock.
I'm trading Eye Beams here.
Yeah, the I-beam pickup was really clutch there for Thijs. But forced to be defensive and nowhere near defensive enough, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Thijs is going to bite the dust, metamorphosis, watermelon directly to the face.
I was going to say, I don't know about you, but Thijs looks quite dead here. Letting BoarControl take the turn, and then BoarControl is going to take down Thijs 3-1, which means he is going to win out in his group very easily, and he's going to be playing again on Sunday, which is going to look pretty good for BoarControl in terms of his points, as he is pretty much guaranteed high flying points now and going to secure at least week 1 so far. Unfortunate for Thijs there. I do feel like the rogue win for BoarControl was massive, and that was off the back of the Van Cleef, which was pretty fortunate. And after that, the lineups just looked good for BoarControl to get the 2 other wins he required.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of the question for me is still the Rogue. Like,
Right.
can the Rogue get through enough of these matchups without, spiking huge headwinds? But I guess that's kind of an unfair criticism anyway, because part of the reason you bring Rogue right now is that in a percentage of games, you will just spike the headwind start, right? Like, that's factored in. You can't ignore it. But anyway, I'm still looking forward to seeing more Highlander Rogue games anyway. But personally, I think it's huge for BoarControl to be off to a good start here, because as I said, his results haven't quite been up to what he would have been expecting in GM so far, but dominating week 1 of Swiss and then continuing to dominate the group stages in the opening seeding rounds. Huge for Boar. Long may it continue.
Yeah, and it's one of the interesting things for me as well in terms of how this format works is, unlike last year, these players, at least for the first 3 weeks, they're not submitting a lineup for 1 to 2 matchups, 1 to 2 opponents. They submit a lineup, they have to do well in a Swiss bracket and Swiss rounds, 7 of them with. Then they have to do well in the group phase with them with. They've not resubmitted. These are the decks BoarControl played in the Swiss. And honestly, if you're going to win the Swiss and then win your group, it's looking fantastic in terms of his lineup and his play. So I'm impressed on pretty much every level here with BoarControl so far.
Yep. It is very, very strong performance. Of course, Thijs still plenty of time to come back from this one. He's had a pretty grueling day already, going back-to-back from Hunter Racing.
Yeah, and it looks like he is going to be... wait, that's completely wrong. Flip those names. We're not just giving Thijs the win. We know everyone loves him, and I don't think this is a vote from the chat allowed to just decide who takes the win. Imagine, well, actually, Thijs' viewers say he wants the win. But imagine those names switched. Thijs is in the lower bracket now, and he will have a match pretty soon, which means that BoarControl does win out the group. Apologies about that, but we'll get that fixed later.
That's just the definition of streamer privilege, right? If you're Thijs, you just get to qualify anyway.
BoarControl's like, wait, what? But that one, it's like, doesn't matter. Get more viewers and then we can talk.
Look at Thijs. Your viewership. Look at Thijs.
There we go.
There we go.
Saved.
All right.
So we are going to go next into the elimination match. So Zim versus Hunter Ace will be next up to decide who goes and faces Thijs. And then Thijs will play once again for your entertainment and to see who can go through the group. Just a nod as well. This is Group A for today. And Group B is going to be tomorrow. The top 2 from each group will play out in the final top 4 on Sunday to decide who is going to make it. So tomorrow you won't see any of these players, but on Sunday you will see BoarControl plus one of the others, just to give you a bit of a breakdown if you are only joining us recently and not sure exactly how these first few weeks of Grandmasters is going. And there's a quick look at Group B that's going to be tomorrow. Casey, Falcone, Silvername, and Yala going to be coming up for you on tomorrow. So looking forward to that one, but I'm looking forward to finishing this one too, Sal.
Yeah, definitely a lot of spicy action coming up in Group B, but we still have a lot of A to resolve. And I'm at least thankful that Thijs gets to sit down, put his feet up, drink a cup of tea maybe. Between now as his next game, because he's been running it so far with Hunter Race into BoarControl back-to-back, but now, as you said, it's that elimination match that we have to sort out. Yeah,
definitely going to be grueling, and we know because we've done similar in the past, maybe many moons ago now, but chaining matches in a competitive environment is exhausting. It's hard enough to just sit and grind ladder for 6-8 hours, whatever. But when you're chaining like